corner.
Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ms. Stephanie, can we do roll call?
Chair Oquendo,
Here.
Vice Chair Carney,
Here.
Member Lantry,
Present.
Member Rivera,
Here.
Member Grigsby,
Present.
Member Douglas,
Here.
Member Alexander.
Present.
We have a quorum. Okay, before we start any business, I believe we have a presentation from the city.
Hello.
Hi. First of all, I would like to apologize for having jeans on. I was in the field all day and I came straight from work. So, my name is Lynette Matheny. I serve on the St. Cloud City Council, and I have the privilege of being able to select people to sit on the boards that serve our city. And first of all, I just want to thank everyone for spending your valuable time serving the city in this wonderful endeavor that you do. I know everybody has very, very busy lives. I know most of you up here, and I know you've got very, very busy lives, and so I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and serving. So annually, the city likes to take a moment to give you all a certificate of appreciation for your service, as well as a small token of our appreciation that I would like to provide to you now. These are really cute this year.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, those are cute. I like those colors.
There we go. Thank you so much for your service. Put it back for you. You tell Terry to send you off.
I will. Thank
And I'm
you.
gonna grab more double pens.
Yo.
Okay.
You're in the city council meeting right now. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
And you get a special gift.
Thank you so much.
Philip, thank you so much for your service.
Thank
Give
you.
me a new diaper bag.
And the jeans are totally appropriate in Osceola County.
That's what I said. That's what I
jeans
said. It's
too,
St.
so-
Cloud. I'm okay.
You're okay.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Okay, getting back on track. If everybody's reviewed the minutes, or take a minute to review the minutes from the last meeting, and offer me a motion, please.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting
I'll
minutes.
second that.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 5-0.
Okay, new business. We will start with resolution number 2023-042R, DRC case CNU 22-00011.
Good evening, Commission members. Erin Stark, Transportation Manager. The case before you tonight, pardon me, let me advance the slides, is a request for a conditional use for the Rental World property at 312 East 13th Street. The site is 1.33 acres in size, and the applicant is requesting approval, and staff is recommending approval with conditions. The background of the property, it has business commercial zoning since it was annexed into the city in 2005. It has commercial future land use designation. The proposed use for the conditional use request before you tonight is an expansion of the equipment rental major area in the outdoor area. The development is a conditional use in the business commercial district, and no adverse impacts on city facilities are assumed with this request. A little more on the background of this property because it was developed in the county before it came to the city. Wanted to provide you all with that information. The site was developed in the county with engineering permit in 2004, and then they had a building permit in the same year. The use was approved as a permitted use in the county and the zoning districts in the county. And when it came into the city, the business commercial zoning district was applied to the property, but the equipment rental major use that they're performing on the property is the conditional use in the city in the business commercial zoning district. They have maintained their original entitlements and have not modified the site development plan since annexation. And they're requesting an expansion of the existing equipment rental major area outdoors to the north and east side of the primary structure in the rear drive aisle. And that's what triggered this conditional use request. This is a copy of the future land use map, which shows the commercial designation on the property. Here's a picture of the zoning map where you can see the business commercial zoning district. This is a copy of the concept plan that is an exhibit to the resolution for the conditional use. Some of the coloring that we've shown on the plan is, we wanted to make it very clear to you all what their existing entitlements are and what the requested new entitlements are. So the green area, of course, they have the right to do the equipment rental major use within the building. That came from Osceola County approvals. The area north of the building underneath what is like a outdoor awning structure, that was something permitted in the county prior to annexation, so they have entitlements for that use in that location already. The area in green, that's the larger area towards the north of the property, that was also on the existing Osceola County plans. And the yellow area is what they're requesting new entitlements for today. So just a little more information that's not on the slide there from the staff report is they have an existing code enforcement violation on the property for doing some work without permits, namely in the area that is yellow today. So they are already storing equipment in those locations, got flagged for that, and that's what started this request for the conditional use. So subsequent, if you all approve this conditional use in this location, they have some amendments with a site development plan that they will follow up with. So some of the conditions are related to timing, if you all were to approve this, of that site development plan coming in to ensure that we resolve the code violation as soon as possible.
If I could, just for the chairman of the commission, this will be heard by council. This is a recommendation tonight from the applicant and from staff and from public comment for the commission to make a recommendation addressing the conditional use issue.
Yes, thank you. So this request meets the strategic plan goals for growth management with the conditions recommended by staff. Those conditions are as follows. That the equipment rental major area shall remain 10 feet from the eastern property line. That's consistent with their existing setback on their approved site plan, and that's consistent with the side setbacks in the business commercial zoning district today. So this doesn't authorize them to go any closer to the property line than the setback would require. The conditional use authorizes a waiver of the area of required landscaping for a low buffer along the northern property line. That area on the approved site plan had landscaping within it. It historically has not been maintained because of the proximity to the large equipment that's out there and the real impossibility of watering it and things like that. So they have requested a waiver to the buffer requirement in that location. and they are proposing the use in that location instead. They are going to mitigate or have proposed to mitigate that required landscaping by paying into the tree bank fund, which is an option that our code allows for. No equipment shall be displayed forward of the building or within the right-of-way of 13th Street or Grape Avenue outside of the areas identified on the concept plan or subsequent site development plan. So basically, the equipment would be behind the building and behind their fence. Condition number 4 that we're recommending is unauthorized on-street parking within the Grape Avenue right-of-way shall be prohibited. No parking signs shall be reinstalled within the right-of-way to prohibit parking in unapproved locations. Condition 5 is the bidirectional drive aisle on the north and east side of the primary structure shall be converted to a one-way drive aisle with the site development plan. They have already changed the signs on their property and they're functioning that way without formal approval of that. So we wanted to make it a condition of the conditional use that if they were to receive approval in the site plan, they'll formalize that and make sure they have the right signage up in those locations so people know where to go and where not to go. Condition 6 is a site development plan to allow expansion of the equipment rental major areas and incorporate these conditional use conditions shall be submitted to the city within 60 days of the conditional use approval. So that's our recommendation to resolve that code violation and get that process initiated. So staff is recommending approval with conditions, the ones previously stated. The DRC made that recommendation on February 14th, and you all have the authority to make the recommendation to City Council, and we're recommending approval with conditions. I'm here if you have any questions. The applicant's representative is also here.
Can you go back to the map with the colors?
Sure.
And what is the yellow on the upper side, north side, right, is red, and the yellow on the right-hand side and the red, what is that?
The yellow on the right-hand side on their approved site plan is a stormwater pond. And they filled that and modified it without authority and added concrete and started parking the vehicles there. They will obviously need South Florida approval, South Florida Water Management District approval to make those changes, and that will be reviewed in the site development plan. This just gives them the right to pursue that. The area on the north side in yellow is that approved landscape buffer area that hasn't been maintained, but they're seeking the waiver for so they can formally have the entitlements for the use in that location.
And then the red is just noting the.
I didn't add the red to the concept plan. Maybe
Red always is like there's a red
Celia
flag, right?
can speak to that about what that color represents, but
Okay.
that's not an area where entitlements by this action are proposed.
All right.
Did a notice for the conditional use that we're discussing tonight go to the neighboring property owners?
Yes, the notice went to all the property owners within 500 feet. We did a newspaper advertisement. Of course, we put a sign on the property as well. And we notified the property owner and then a tenant at that location as well. The address on file associated with the mobile home park to the north, there's just one address on file. So someone in Dallas got that owner notification, and then someone at that actual address received a tenant notification as well.
So the adjacent property is residential?
The adjacent property to the north has, forgive me, let me go back to my maps. I think it has medium density residential, future land use designation,
Existing.
and it has the mobile home park
Yeah.
zoning. Mhm. The property to the east, I should clarify if you're asking about surrounding residential neighbors. The property to the east has an occupied single-family dwelling on it, but it has the highway business zoning classification.
Is the red area on the map that we're looking at, is that concrete that they added that they weren't supposed to in the 10-foot setback?
Possibly, but again, I didn't draw that red area,
Okay, I
so
was just wondering that.
Celia can clarify that when she speaks on behalf of the applicant, but that's what I suspect it is.
The one problem that I also know is that according to what you just said, they were not allowed to put any equipment on 13th Street, but there's constantly equipment being put out on that front easement.
Right, so what this recommendation for a conditional use condition does, in addition to some of the other conditions as well, is take some of the standard code provisions that are already requirements of the property owner, and it brings them up into the zoning level of approvals, and it allows for the zoning to be revoked if those things were not to be followed. So we know historically there's been behavior like that of storing the equipment in those locations, and this just adds one more tool of enforcement to stop that from happening.
So there will be more court enforcement going onto the property as we go along.
Code enforcement can and has historically dealt with those issues, but if that is violated moving forward, it would come back as a violation of the conditional use approval and not just to code enforcement, potentially, if it's not resolved through immediate code enforcement.
Let's not have them have the stuff they're selling out in front for people to see it.
Not in the right of way.
Any other questions from the committee?
This might be a good time, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, just as a reminder, you've got your staff report, starting on page 4, it specifies the Land Development Code section factors that you need to consider, all 6 of the factors, and the summary contained within the report. 3.4.3 C5B enumerates by bullet point the 6 factors. Each needs to be considered equally and answered in the affirmative in order to support a recommendation for approval. So that will be the factors to be considered by the commission in conjunction with the application and feedback. Thank you.
Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening. Celia Dorn, 17 South Orlando Avenue, Kissimmee, Florida. Just to address a few questions that have come up, the red strip on the concept plan, that's actually showing that 10-foot setback.
Okay.
So that's what that is. The fence actually dissects that red line. It's right kind of in the middle. There's 5 feet on one side and 5 feet on the other. That fence was approved as part of the site plan in Osceola County. Nothing has changed with that fence. So that is what that red strip is on that concept plan.
What threw me off was there seems to be a concrete texture or
There is
patch
concrete that runs up to the fence.
Okay.
So, we agree with staff's report and recommendation. There's just a few other issues that I would like to quickly answer and address, and then if I could save some time to address any additional questions or comments that may come from the audience. All right. So the first issue on the north side on the fence line, the small yellow strip, the smaller yellow section, that area, they had trees along there. In addition to having a hard time with the irrigation system, they move heavy machinery around this property. So you can imagine that they were backing things up and hitting these trees, trailers and other equipment. And so the trees and the other landscaping was suffering some untimely demise when it was in that area. The back wall is unique. It is not just a fence. It is in fact a masonry wall to add more of a buffer than just a normal chain link fence. So there is an additional buffer to the property to the north as opposed to just the fence, which is part of why we are seeking the waiver of the landscaping there. If they put the landscaping there, it's going to keep dying. That's the reality of it. And so that is why that request is coming in for the waiver for that area. On the other side, that is being used currently as storage. for the major equipment. Storage is actually not the right word, my apologies, because outdoor storage is separate from equipment rental display, which is what we are discussing here. They would continue to use that space as they are currently using it. One of the things that they are willing to do is to add that type of screening, because that side on the east side does currently have a chain link fence. So they would be willing to add that so that the neighbor to the east doesn't have to look through the chain link fence, and to help mitigate some of those issues to the east. In addition, the concerns with the parking, hopefully that is being addressed with the condition. Obviously, the no parking signs will go up. These are where people are parking is in the right of way. So there are options for St. Cloud Police Department to ticket those people, for code enforcement to also bring an action against those folks. So that should not be an issue with folks to continue parking. In addition, part of the site plan that is going to go in place will require some additional parking spots to offset the increased use on the property. So that will help make sure that people are parking on site as opposed to in the road or off site. The codification of the route, the one way, the idea of that is it's going to bring people off of 192 down Grape. From Grape, they're going to turn right into the property, pick up what they need, go through, go out and around, and then they will exit back onto 192. So it's really to create a circular pattern and to keep traffic flowing and to make sure there isn't a backup. One additional thing, this is a map of the property. You can see that the actual storage or display space for the equipment is pretty far north on the property. It will, based on the conditional use requirements, stay behind the buildings and to the side of the building behind that fence. So it won't be on the front side of the property. I understand the neighbor to the east has had some complaints with the issue. You will see his home is quite far forward on the property. That is his home close to 192. So hopefully there will be no equipment that is visible from the house based on that placement, and the addition of the screening on the fence will prevent being able to see it on the back side of his property as well. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Is all of the fencing, like cyclone fence or?
I'm not quite sure what that type of fencing is. My apologies.
Okay. Well, in terms of the picture that you showed where most of it was going to get, is all of it more like that, or is some of it solid construction?
So this is actually already up on the side of Grape Avenue. So this is what that looks like on the side of Grape Avenue. Then the wall to the north of the property is the masonry fence, the block fence.
So you do
behind
have a
it.
masonry fence?
Yeah,
Part of it.
yes, on the north side of the property, there's a masonry fence or wall. And then it is also chain link on the east side of the property. It does not have the screening in there yet, but that would be added.
And what's the height?
It's a standard 6-foot chain link fence.
I have a question about
Yes.
the existing concrete pad that was added.
Yes,
And there was apparently a pond that was filled in.
yes.
Do you know how long ago that was? The reason I'm asking is because my concern here would be drainage.
So.
And I understand that it has to go to South Florida Water Management for review. But I'm just curious how long it's been, because we haven't had rain in a while, so,
It's actually been there for over a year.
okay.
I honestly do not know the entire time it has been there. But as part of the submission of the site plan to deal with all of the conditional use issues, they will also be submitting the engineering plan for a new stormwater pond on the site to address any drainage or stormwater issues that have arisen based on the filling in of that pond. So those things are being addressed as well. They're just not part of the conditional use permit.
Understood. Well, do we review that, or probably not, right? a site
The
plan?
site plan development will not come before the commission, I don't believe.
I just want to state that one of my concerns with drainage off of a site like this would be oils and contaminants getting into the stormwater. So it would be nice to see some sort of additional measure taking place. For instance, in the drainage units, you know, they have some ones that can separate greases and oils and that sort of thing, sort of like we have at the lakefront. So,
How long has this business been there?
This business has been there for 19 years. So the business has been there for quite some time.
And then this study is going to show whether or not any of those kind of concerns would have been either exacerbated by the filling in of that, or that there needs to be something in order to protect that.
So South Florida Water Management's going to bring all of that up and deal with that as part of their permitting process.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll be opening up for the public comment for tonight. Since we got a couple things coming through, we'll be making public comments just up to 3 minutes, please. When you come up, please state your name, your address, and please fill out the form.
Yeah, please, our clerk needs the form submitted even after you've made your presentation or before. Thank you.
You can fill it out after you present.
Okay, any public comments? Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello to everybody. My name is Nancy Goff. My husband Aubrey is here with me. We live at 1105 Grape Avenue and have been there for almost 25 years. Everything that has been said tonight is not true. Okay, when we moved in there, it was nothing but woods. Now it is a nightmare. First of all, I'm not really too good on seeing your map the way it is, so you're going to have to excuse me if I'm going to be wrong or here or something. But our house is, here is Rent-A-World, and here is my house. I can put Christmas decorations on their equipment. It is that close to my house. There never has been any trees or anything, and I have pictures that go way back. They've been there 19 years, we've been there 25. And I can show you pictures. You will not see any trees. You will not see any shrubs. You will see nothing. You will literally see equipment hanging over. It's
So
a
are you-
nuisance.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you north of the
I'm right on
property?
Grape Avenue.
So
We
you're
are right on Grape Avenue
right
and 12th Street.
on the north side of that
Right on Grape
CMU
Avenue and 12th Street.
masonry wall?
I can hear them ordering their Dunkin' Donuts in the morning. That's how close we are. The north side, okay.
Okay.
So we're on the north side. The noise is unbearable. The diesel smell is unbearable. I'm coughing all the time. Never been a cougher in my life, and now I find myself coughing all the time, constantly. We have to keep our doors and windows shut all the time with the AC on, and right now with the prices of electric bills, I don't want to do that, but we have to. Because the smell is so bad. We have a carport out there that we had to get a screen to put across the front and the sides to keep the dust that they keep blowing. They take the blower and they just point it right directly at our house, directly. And we get all the dirt. My husband washes and waxes the cars every Sunday, and by Monday, they're full of the dirt from Rent-A-World. As far as the parking, it's unbearable. My husband had neck surgery. I have a pinched nerve and a bulging disc, and we cannot see to get out of our own carport. We have to stretch our necks. I have literally been in arguments with people because I very politely said, "You're blocking my view, I can't get out." And then World War III begins. I don't even know where to begin. They park on the sidewalk, right on the sidewalk of Grape Avenue. They park up and down 12th Street on both sides. You cannot get out in the mornings on either side of Grape Avenue because they are parking. The diesel smell is giving me headaches and I'm coughing. They have a vibrating compactor that shakes so much you can feel the vibration in my house. The dust blowing, let's see, they have put up no parking signs before. They have, and I don't know who it is. I'm not saying it's Rent-A-World. I'm not saying it's their customers. I don't know. I didn't see them. But they pick them up literally and throw them in the bushes. Open fires by their oil storage, and I guess that's what it is because of the smell, is oil. And you can smell it. It's horrible. We're too old to have to start all over again. We're not going to do it. I'm 71, my husband's 72. We're not starting all over again. We've been there, like I said, for 25 years. And with the price of things anymore, we can't afford it anyway. I can go on and on. Their music is so loud, we have to close our doors, put the AC on, and you can still sing to the music because it's that loud. I find myself singing to it, which I don't want to. But the main thing is that 10-foot buffing zone, I guess is what you're calling it.
Buffer, ma'am.
I have pictures that I took before I came in, and if I was tall enough, I could reach up and touch the equipment. And like I said, I can go back 19 years and show you pictures of anything. And you are not going to see any trees, shrubbery, or anything. My husband goes out there and he maintains the mess that everybody leaves behind, and it's just a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
How y'all doing?
Very good.
I'm James Croft. I live on the east side.
Name your first, last name and address,
James
please.
Croft, 320 East 13th Street.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Been there pretty much all my life. I bought a house in town for 22, 23 years and then moved back out there. But she's right. It's terrible. And they forgot to mention about the walls almost busted down. The neighbor on the west northeast corner in the trailer, they just put a 4x4 sheet of plywood over a hole in the wall they knocked in there here a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's just been, and the fence on the east side is mangled. I got pictures I sent. I guess the city manager is going to have them, and the planning sent. I guess everybody's going to get those pictures, I hope. But they just keep tearing my fence down. They bust my fence. They tore down 140 foot of fence when they originally come in there and started. Through their scrim fence, took down my fence, and I'm talking 10-foot telephone poles, 5 foot in the ground, 5 foot out of the ground, 140 foot. There was 2 on each end. I got pictures of that, but I couldn't find them. But the noise, slamming the ramps, dropping the ramps, loading equipment on that delivery vehicle, and then the new trailer now, it don't have the braces to hold it up. They slam down on it. And them kids that are running the show, there's young guys running the whole show over there outside. It's just, and air chisels and hammer chisels and concrete mixers and the burning, that's the fuel storage area there. You know, I don't think it's permitted, and they burn right on the ground. I've sent some pictures of that, and they got a burn barrel sitting there. The dust, they blow the dust and the dirt. It is just, I sent a picture or two of that. It's out of control, really. That place is out of control. And the parking, they put pallets, they keep stacking pallets up on the right of way, right on the edge of the road, between the street light and the side of the road. They haven't even tried to attempt to get any compliance with the way they're parking on the side of the road. And I hope the police department starts writing them, because that's their commercial vehicles parked on the side of the building on Grape Avenue. Oh yeah, the pond, I'm sure they filled that in without digging the dirt up and burning it. It's covered up. I'd like to see whoever core drill that and analyze that and have them dig that up, because I drink the water out of the ground right there. I mean, it's crazy. The hazardous, they should have proof of where they've disposed of oil and hazardous waste and things. The trash that blows over the fence with their packaging, steel packaging and all their stuff. I mean, and beer bottles and stuff that comes from back there in that corner. You know, and there's 8 to 10 employees that drive vehicles. There's only 21 parking spaces in that place. And then another thing is these guys come and pick up and drop off equipment, and they can't come in the front, but they come in the front, and they got to get turned around somehow or back out in that road to go back around to the back. And I swear, it's a wonder somebody hasn't gotten killed.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, I'll be back in 2 days. That wasn't mine.
Sir,
Thank you for your comment.
sir, we can.
Oh, yeah, I need to fill that out.
Any other public comment? Okay, we'll be closing public comments. Any comments between yourselves?
I was just going to ask if they could address some of those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. So to address some of those concerns, I understand that the noise is an issue, but this isn't asking for this use to come onto the property for the first time. The use is going to continue there whether or not there's additional space, and the noise is going to continue. The property is on 192 in a commercial area, and that's what it's zoned for. It's zoned to have commercial use there. This use has been there for 19 years. To address some issues that came up specifically, the first thing is, by putting all of this in the conditional use, the no parking, the fence, all of these conditions, it's going to be easier for the city to enforce the business to follow the rules. If they lose their conditional use permit for violating it, they're not going to be able to do any of this. So there's an added incentive for the business to follow the rules. That's the big thing. The people who are parking on the side of the road, you know, you've got another business right to the left. That's the Dunkin' Donuts that was mentioned. I've been there in the morning. I know that line queues at the Dunkin' Donuts of people trying to grab some coffee on the way to work. So there is additional traffic and parking that's not necessarily caused by the folks at the rental world. The back wall, if there is a hole in that back wall, obviously that needs to be addressed and fixed. I don't think there's any issue addressing that. Same with the mangled fence. If there are issues with the fence, then the fence needs to be corrected as well. There's no one saying that those things will not be done. Those things will be addressed. Obviously, they couldn't hang the screening across a mangled fence. So in order to hang the screening, they would have to fix the fence. So those things can be addressed. Adding the screening should help with some of the dust issues. The dust right now is gonna go right through a chain link fence. The screening will help keep it in. I understand there's dust issues along the back, along the north side as well, but there already is a masonry fence there, or masonry wall. Adding additional landscaping there is not gonna resolve the issues of dust and some of the other concerns that the neighbors have. We're happy to sit down with the Goffs and, you know, try and address some of these issues and concerns that they have, and see if maybe we can resolve some of those issues there. But unfortunately, it is a commercial business. They are dealing with heavy machinery. The machines are going to beep. When they back up, they beep. When they're loading, they're going to have some noise. So we're happy, like I said, happy to try and address some of these issues with them. But we would ask that, you know, the board consider staff's recommendation, understand that this is going to put some strict parameters in for the business that the business will have to comply with, and that they will be able to continue the use that they're already performing on the property. With that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
I do agree that the conditional use is probably going to make it easier for the city to enforce some of the violations that they've had in the past. Although I do wonder if there is some sort of balance for a better buffer, if you will. I mean, obviously landscaping is not going to work, but I just wonder if there is a better way to separate this property from the neighboring properties. You know, possibly a masonry wall on the east side, maybe a little bit taller. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's the only conditional use the waiver is the only thing I am questioning. I don't think it needs to be landscaping, but I do feel like there should be some sort of buffer.
One thing that worries me is they've gotten away with so many years of violations, how they're gonna keep on going forward, not violating anything again.
Well, I don't know that, you know, not giving them a conditional use is going to make the situation much better, but my recommendation is to revise the conditional use to have some sort of buffer between the neighboring properties, maybe not landscaping, and maybe it requires a variance, because I know the fence, you know, there's a height restriction, but in this case, you know, the variance would make sense so that it could help to save the neighboring residents from some of the noise and things like that.
If I could, Mr. Lantry, the commission, with regard to the conditional use has the ability, has to stay within the lanes of the 6 factors, but certainly can, as part of its recommendation, in conjunction with those factors, make appropriate recommendations, conditions, safeguards, things that the commission recommends as part of their action and recommendation to the council. The variance is outside the scope of the commission here, and that would be something that the city and the property owner would consider, if appropriate, to the Board of Adjustment here in the city. That would be outside of the commission. But tonight, the applicant, as is their right, to submit the request for the conditional use, and the city has framed what the city believes are appropriate conditions, which applicant has acquiesced in. And so, but it's not to suggest any action by the commission other than what you collectively decide to do, and any conditions that you collectively feel are appropriate, if any, in making a recommendation to the council. But I'd encourage you to focus on the staff report, starting at page 4, where the bullet points begin. There's some analysis, very in-depth, good analysis in the staff report to discuss the issues, to spur thought amongst the commission. And then the conditions are specifically enumerated as proposed on page 7 of the staff report as a guidepost for further discussion.
So my only questions would be, who do the neighbors go to when there are violations, such as what they were talking about? Who do they go to who listens to them and helps to mitigate that between the business owner? That might be a staff question. And then my other question is, what are those other properties? Are they zoned only residential? And I think you told us this a minute ago, and I just don't remember what the other properties, are they zoned?
To the north is medium density residential,
Is
or
it
to
the
the
one
east
where the-
is highway business.
Ms. Grigsby, if I could, I think that might be directed at me. Are you asking if the property owner in
There's Dunkin'
this
Donuts.
applicant, it goes outside of whatever the framework is of operating, who is responsible to enforce those violations? That would fall back to code enforcement.
Yeah,
So-
that's why I was just saying is that.
Which is, as Ms. Sturr presented, it was the impetus behind this application to begin with. There was a code enforcement case initiated in 2021, which then was the impetus behind the applicant framing this conditional use as a potential addressing of that violation.
Okay, so that's where if the
Correct.
other surrounding neighbors had a problem, they called code enforcement and.
Well,
it-
community
okay,
compliance
perfect.
officers now.
Well-
And then, yeah, if anybody can tell me, maybe staff, what are the other properties, what is the zoning for the Goff's property, the other gentleman's property?
So the property to the east that has an occupied single-family dwelling on it, it has the commercial land use designation and the highway business zoning district. He just hasn't converted, he's still living there. He hasn't utilized those entitlements. The property to the north is the medium-density residential land use designation, and it has the MH2 residential manufactured mobile home zoning.
Say that one
Does
more
that
time.
make sense? We don't see it a lot in the city. MH2, residential manufactured mobile home. So it just allows mobile homes.
Mobile home park.
Yeah, I'm just, but are mobile home parks considered commercial?
No, not necessarily, because
Only
they're in the
residential?
residential land use designation. The requirements for buffers are based on future land use designations. We want to allow the future vision to come to fruition. So what they're doing today doesn't dictate how they need to buffer. What the plan is in the future dictates the buffer. The plan on that area is being implemented through the mobile home park. It's medium density residential. That buffer on the north side is required to be a medium buffer in our code, which is 25 feet. But there's an option in our code to have a low buffer width, which drops it from 25 to 10 with the addition of a concrete wall. So that's how the code would apply today to that northern buffer is a 10-foot physical space area required for landscaping.
So if this commission here just wanted to make a recommendation that we maybe revisit the type of buffer on the northern side, that's what I'm kind of leaning towards or maybe suggesting, just as a commentary.
Well, you also have Dunkin' Donuts over there, you have the Dollar Tree store, you got what do you call it, the Bucks Company there. I live on 10th Street. It gets very busy, but I live like 6 more blocks over. So that's a very busy industrial section of town.
And it's gonna get busier, but I think
Yeah.
that, you know,
The
like,
bigger we
just as
get,
we said,
the
we
more they
within these the staff did a great job thinking about what it is, it does a business that exists, how can we mitigate? And I think your point is really.
How can we make it better for everybody to live together in harmony?
Right. A couple of suggestions, if you were to modify anything to do with the landscaping, that may affect the language of proposed condition number 2. So, and then there's, condition number 1 addresses the eastern property line. The applicant proposed to add that screening, but staff, without a condition from this zoning approval, wouldn't have the authority to require that just based on what she says at the meeting. So if you wish to memorialize that as a solution, I would recommend that you add that to the conditions so that we'll have authority to require that.
So, you understand, yes, okay. But any motion with any conditions have to be clearly enunciated, certainly for benefit of the council and staff in moving forward as far as a clear record as well.
And if we didn't necessarily mean that it has to be landscaping, again, that term, but if it has to be to just readdress the buffer on the north side again, I mean, is the term low buffer like a key there? Can there be a different type of buffer that I think you just said that we could recommend?
If I could, before Mr. Answer, I would hesitate to be too general in making your condition, because the lack of clarity leads to a lack of ability to enforce.
I just don't want to use the term landscape because I understand what she's saying
I-
about that.
Right, that condition, you know, contains the waiver and the mitigation by paying into the fund. I certainly think Ms. Stirk is a good resource to ask for some ideas about what would be alternatives, but once an identification is made about an alternative, make sure to make that clear if you're going to be.
That's why I'm asking
moving
for help.
forward.
Right, I would think, and please confirm this, that if you were asking for the applicant to provide that information in order to get a recommendation of approval from you all, that would be a continuance where they would come back with some alternative proposal. You also have another option, I believe, which is to recommend that the applicant, prior to Thursday night meeting in front of the council, look into that and present that information to the council. But we have to be careful about what the actual conditions are that are memorialized, so that we can enforce them and implement them.
Yeah, I would suggest a continuance is not needed, and certainly, but I do think that the recommendation, which will go to council, which will be then addressed in firm format, needs to be clear as to what the commission is recommending. So, that's as much direction as I can provide, but just to be clear collectively in whatever the commission wants to do with regard to that issue, or any issue.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify, the masonry wall that is already there, I believe meets the standards of a low buffer under the code, correct?
In conjunction with 10 feet of landscaping needs.
Right. So that's why we're seeking the waiver of the landscaping, but the wall itself already meets the standard of what a low buffer would be.
I'm sorry, then I've just got confused because I thought it was the masonry wall along with the landscaping meets the required.
It does, it does. So if you waive the landscaping requirement, then the wall itself is meeting the code, because you're waiving the landscape component.
And that's where I heard another 25 somewhere that I was thinking like, why can't it be a 25-foot buffer or something? What can we do instead of landscaping that they're knocking over with their equipment? What else can we do to help neighbors have a little more buffer from hanging their Christmas lights on the equipment?
So I will tell you, just based on the size of the site, that there's the the space that they're asking for to begin with is not that large on the north. It is a very small space. It's already allowed pretty close to the wall. It's just that up at the north, it's just that little sliver. I don't know if it is the concept plan in here.
Yeah.
But we're certainly not opposed to going to look for some additional options before Thursday. I'm just not off the top of my head aware of what some other types of buffers may be.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. I don't, what is the other piece that you could do? And I wouldn't want to say continuance and you have to go back to a draw. I just thinking if you could come up with something, so when you present, hopefully the council is going to come up with a couple of the same things. They're going to hear what we heard and how do we help the neighbors as best we can in an area. So I don't know how to put that in words.
I'm going to step out, Dawn, for a second, not out of the building, but the people that do the universal walls that you don't hear the other rides and things, maybe they can contact that Rental World, go over there. They're downtown Orlando.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ms. Carney. I think that the commission is reaching beyond its scope of its authority. The commission is not here to solve a puzzle. It's
Okay.
here to take the application, provide its feedback and recommendations and any appropriate safeguards or conditions. But y'all are brilliant, but you're not authorized nor, the applicant has rights to move forward, yea or nay, with what they're proposing. As a suggestion, just as I'm hearing out loud, if the commission is stumbling on condition 2 because of the lack of the landscaping instead of the payment into the tree fund, conceptually, the commission could say, make the landscaping, forget the tree fund, and make the landscaping part of that border as part of our condition that we recommend. That's an option. Not suggesting it, I'm just saying that's an example of what you all can come up with. But just make it clear whatever it is you're recommending, up or down. But the council will then take it from there. But try not to problem solve because it's going to be outside of your authority and it's not going to be efficient for purposes of our time.
If I may address the board, Dagmar
Yes.
Segarra, Planning Manager. What I would suggest, if you wish to go that route, which I was going to mention, but also you can also ask the applicant to continue working with staff and come up with solutions prior to the meeting on Thursday, and we will present those in front of the city council. There are options. There are two parameters to a buffer. It's a width parameter, which is the 10-foot distance, and the landscape requirement within that width. The waiver is for both. We can amend the condition to be only the landscaping. It can be the condition of waiving the entirety of the buffer. There are ways that we can work with the applicant, that we can provide solutions prior to Thursday and take those in front of the city council consideration.
Mr. Lantry, you asked a question about fence requirements and allowances and where it crossed the line into variance category. Of course, we don't want to memorialize a condition here today that requires the variance in the future that may or may not be granted, right? So the regular code for masonry walls or any fence in the business commercial zoning district allows for a height of 8 feet.
Okay, that's
So
what I
this
thought.
masonry wall is 6 feet today.
So I could potentially make a recommendation to, for a condition to extend the current masonry wall to 8 feet?
That's an option our
And
code would
and
allow
add a
for.
masonry wall, an 8 feet masonry wall on the east side?
You could make that condition. That condition is permissible by code.
What do you think?
I would just have one response to that. One of the things that staff pointed out is that we really should be looking forward. This property to the east is future land use commercial. It's zoned highway business. The masonry wall would not be something you would typically see between two businesses. And while I understand the concern, I just think that if we're looking forward, that the masonry wall is not necessarily the answer to the forward thinking. I think that, we can address some other options there, but I don't know that a masonry wall necessarily will solve the problem. So.
Okay, well, I do question though whether any business that was there would, want to see large equipment, directly on there.
That's why the applicant's very happy to add the screening to block that view of the equipment. Because I very much understand you don't want to look at that necessarily.
Yeah.
But the screening does the same thing to block the view as a masonry wall would.
Is it only the masonry wall that can be 8 feet, or any? Any fence?
fence.
So it can be east side is not necessarily, the masonry wall already exists on one spot.
Yes, ma'am.
I could understand that extension as masonry. The other side is just a fence, could be a little higher with the screening.
Well, I'm leaning towards just making a recommendation for city council
I think so.
to
That's-
suggest an 8-foot masonry wall. Not actually putting a condition in, but keeping the
Yeah, as a
conditions as they are.
suggestion for 8-foot. 8-foot fence, not necessarily masonry on both sides, because that means they have to create an entire masonry wall on the east that doesn't exist right now. I
Correct.
think that's a bit of a ask and a burden.
If I could, just anticipating that the discussion is winding down, when a motion is presented, I think the movement needs to be very clear about the consideration of the factors, and then whichever recommendation direction you wish to go. But if addressing the conditions, clearly enunciate, which, if any, are part of the motion, and/or if there are additional or less than the full amount that's presented, to make it clear for council, so council clearly knows what's been recommended, as opposed to, these are the proposed conditions, and, by the way, don't forget to consider, a couple other things, but they're not part of the condition. I would make it pretty well framed and clear on the bullet points that you're including as conditions, if any. And I wouldn't, if that makes sense, I wouldn't footnote something and then it's unclear, was that a condition or is that just something to consider? I think the council needs to hear exactly what the recommendations are from the commission. Again, you're an advisory board, you're guiding with feedback, and then the council will take that. But it's good for everyone here participating, staff, public, applicant, to know what the direction was from the commission, clearly.
So
By way of a recommendation.
what would you all think if the conditions that staff put on were great?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wouldn't ask for early acknowledgement about direction of, I would, when the discussion's over, someone move forward with whatever motion that person feels is appropriate. But I wouldn't be asking for, will this work, will that, I wouldn't.
Gotcha.
We
All right.
don't want to do that. Just for efficiency purposes and clarification and clean record. Thank you, Ms. Grigsby.
All right, well, I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of resolution number 2023-042R, based on the 6 factual matters within the Land Development Code, and an added condition of extending the masonry wall to 8 feet and adding an 8-foot masonry wall on the east side of the property.
Mr. Lantry, is your motion including all of the conditions that were presented in the
Yes.
staff report?
Yes, and I would include all of the conditions, all of the 6 conditions that city staff has already imposed.
And then could
In
you
the
clarify again, and then your additional, your motion includes 2 additional conditions?
Correct.
And could you state those again?
Yes, and the 2 additional conditions are to extend the existing masonry wall from 6 feet to 8 feet. And the second condition is to add an 8-foot masonry wall on the east property line.
Just like to ask for clarification on the wall recommendation for the east side of the property line. You can see on the concept plan on your screen, they only keep the equipment behind the fence, which is where the yellow stops, about in line with the front of the building. Are you recommending that up to that point or all the way out to 192?
I'm recommending it from the existing masonry wall on the north end of the property to in line with the front of the building, the existing building.
Thank you for that clarification.
On the east side.
Correct, on the east side.
We have a first, do we have a second?
We have a motion.
Do you have any other motion?
You first ask for a second to see if someone will second the motion as presented.
Will anybody second the motion as presented?
I'll second it.
Now it's open to discussion and/or a vote. Or another motion, but you vote on the motions in the order that they're seconded. So this motion will be taken first by the commission.
This is the first motion. Does anybody wish to apply a second motion?
Well, what's appropriate now, there's a motion, a second. Discussion is entirely appropriate, and then to call for a vote on it. And have it be, and then take direction from there.
I fully believe that city council will have their own opinions on this. They may disagree with my added condition, suggested added condition. They may have a better idea for what could be used here. I mean, what do you guys think?
I don't agree with the added masonry wall on the east side. I think that conditions from staff are appropriate. I would have added the protection screening on the east side and ask the applicant to consider an 8-foot fence there, but I wouldn't require a.
The reason I suggested requiring it was because one of the residents had said that the fence was already damaged. And with large equipment, I mean, obviously they're swinging booms around, you know, excavators and that sort of thing. And it's not really customary to have a chain link fence as the boundary because it could easily be damaged, taken down. You know, somebody backs up a little too close to it. Whereas a CMU or masonry wall would be a lot more resistant to any sort of equipment running into it. That's my opinion.
Chain link is easier to fix. Masonry wall, I would think, is more expensive.
It's absolutely more expensive, yes.
So do we have a motion?
Well, we have a motion. If there's any further discussion, it can be had. If not, then I'd recommend that you take action on the motion as presented, whether in favor or not. But to address that motion before considering whatever's going to happen next.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table. Does anybody want to?
I should clarify, I apologize. You can, I apologize. If a commission member feels that a more appropriate motion to the commission can be forwarded, which will then yield a second, you can do that. I don't want to discourage anyone from making a motion if they want to make a motion. But the first motion that was forwarded, which has been seconded by Mr. Lantry, will be voted upon first. That will occur and must. That's clear.
So as the first motion, how many have approval for the first motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Carney? Ms. Carney, you're going to need to vote. Well, are you stepping out? No, ma'am, you got to get on the microphone at least if you're just to vote. The call was, Ms. Carney.
Yes, sir.
The motion was,
Yes, sir.
you're voting yea on the?
Yes.
Okay, so you're voting in favor of the motion?
Right.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
No problem.
All those nay?
All
Nay.
against it?
Dr. Rivera, you have to vote.
I did.
You did.
I didn't hear.
The first one was, he was.
I said yes.
He seconded the motion.
I second
You
the
voted
motion.
aye, so it was
Yes.
4-1, it passed. The motion of Mr. Lantry passes 4-1. Is that correct? Thank you. Okay, I apologize. Sorry,
It's okay.
just trying to be clear for everyone in the audience and or to vote it clear.
Okay,
Be
we're
loud and
now,
proud, folks.
Thank you. Thank you.
for new business, we have ordinance number 2022-49, DRC case CPA 22-0004.
Ms.
And
Douglas,
before
you-
we move on,
Apologize, Ms. Douglas may be a voting member here, depending upon if Ms. Carney returns, just to alert the commission. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. Can you read both cases together, please?
okay, we'll be doing ordinance number 2022-49, CPA case, CPA 22-0004, ordinance number 202-50, DRC case ZMA 22-00003.
Good evening, Board. My name is Tisha Manning, Senior Planner for Community Development. I'm presenting to you tonight the project located at 5700 Nova Road is for a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning. It is for 12.313 acres. That is approximately east of Nova Road, west of Pine Grove Road, and north of Hunters Ridge Boulevard. The applicant is requesting approval, and city staff also recommends approval. The background, the proposed future land use is industrial with the proposed zoning of I-1, which is also Industrial 1. It is compatible with the surrounding area and poses no adverse impact on city facilities. You can see here the future land use as it currently is, low-density residential with agricultural zoning through the county. This does meet the strategic plan goal of growth management, economic development, and professional workforce. Again, staff recommends approval of this, of these ordinances, and likewise, we ask that planning also recommend approval of ordinance number 2022-49 and ordinance number 2022-50. I'm available for any questions, as well as the applicant is available if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to speak?
Hello, this is John Porter with Osceola Engineering, 1003 Florida Avenue, representing the applicant, and happy to answer any questions you guys may have about it.
What is it?
So there's no plans for development at the time. Mr. Rocker is looking to get the project rezoned to obviously allow for future opportunities.
I feel like they're being a little secretive. I feel like he knows, he's got some kind of idea of what it wants to be.
What, okay, I do really understand the change. It's industrial to an industrial 1. Help educate me a little.
No, currently this property is still, has county zoning. It was annexed into the city, and we were still working on what the zoning was going to be. So currently, right now, it still has county zoning of low-density residential and of agricultural, with a future land use of low-density residential.
How big is it?
12.313 acres.
And it's across from a residential area?
It is across from agricultural and a residential area. So it's a lot of undeveloped land in that area right now.
A lot of lockers could go up there, huh?
So if we look at the future land use map, what is the location of the future bus barn and
Right here.
future high school?
Right here, in this area, and right next to it,
Okay.
right next to it to the east.
Is there a timing on any of those?
I feel like they've already started building the
I mean, like, yeah,
bus depot.
really?
A lot
Well,
of construction
they've
going on
come
there.
in for some extensions. I don't know if there's currently any site development plans under review.
Just to clarify, the bus depot, I don't know the exact timing of that, but I did notice last week that engineering plans were submitted to the Water Management District for construction of that. That is contiguous on the south side and on the east side of the property.
Any other comments for the applicant or the city?
No?
No, okay. Be opening up for public comments. Anybody in the public like to speak? No public comments. Can we get a motion on DRC case number CPA 22-0004, ordinance number 2022-49 first?
I'll give it a try. I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2022-49 and transmit to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for interagency review based on 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All against?
Mr.
Nay.
Wright? Okay, thank you. Passes 4-1.
Next,
I don't know what it's going to be.
DRC case number ZMA 22-0003, ordinance number 2022-50, zoning amendment. Do I get a motion?
Oh. Hold on, where are we? Sorry. I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 202-50 based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
Do I have a
second it.
second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1.
Would you like to hear both cases together again? We're going to be doing ordinance number 2023-10, DRC case ANX 23-0001, and ordinance number 2023-11, DRC case CPA 23-0004.
One more.
And ordinance number 2023-12, DRC case ZMA 23-0001.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, Tisha Manning, Senior Planner for the Community Development Department. This is for Amavi St. Cloud, Clay Whaley. It is approximately 29.48 acres. This is located in the East Lake Toho element, so it's over in that area. It is south of Clay Whaley, west of Florida's Turnpike, and east of Stagecoach Road. It is for voluntary annexation, comprehensive plan amendment, and a zoning. Staff does recommend approval. There are the background. It is contiguous to city limits and reasonably compact, and it abuts the city on the southern and eastern property boundaries. The existing county future land use is mixed use, and the existing county zoning is mixed use. The proposed future land use for the city is mixed use. The proposed zoning for the city is also mixed use. It is compatible with the development in the surrounding area and poses no adverse impact on city facilities. This is approximately the location of where it is. And my next slide will kind of give you a better look at the future land use, because this is all Edgewater that was just recently annexed. And so it is just this little small property here. And I put this in because this is the East Lake Toho development area. Now, where I obtained this from, it kind of throws you because they laid it on the side, but this is the turnpike. So if you were to rotate this clockwise, this would be Clay Whaley here.
North is to the left.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, where's the turnpike again?
The turnpike is here.
Okay.
Yeah, so they rotated it. But it just kind of gives you the development that's going on in that area and where this property is located and subject to that. It is for a development that should be developed in a single phase. It's about 238 single-family attached units, townhomes. And they're going to have 2 access points off of Clay Whaley, as well as some future connections on the east and west property boundaries that are going to abut the development properties. They do currently already possess approvals for the concept plan and the preliminary subdivision plan from the county. So what we would be reviewing is actually the site development plan. And we did accept the county approvals as is. We reviewed it, and we don't have any conditions to what the county approved. It is in alignment with the strategic plan goal of growth management. And staff reviewed this and recommends approval. Likewise, we ask that the commission recommend approval. And I am available for any questions, as well as the applicant is available for any questions.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Or the applicant would like to speak?
Good evening, Sean Hendel with Hampton Walter and Associates, 8 Broadway, Kissimmee, Florida. Separate of this, your question on the schools for the last item. So the Transportation East is slated to start construction in May of this year. And then High School AAA is slated to start construction in July of '24. So the high school's under design right now. They're finishing the design on Transportation East. Just
Okay, thank you for that information.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome. Just one correction on the presentation Tisha did. The site is not townhomes. So this is an NH2 property. NH2 under MXD zoning is multifamily. It can be townhomes. It's actually attached product. So what this is proposed is a horizontal apartment complex. So they originally, when they were doing the apartment complex with the developer, they didn't want to put anything high adjacent to the other development. So they created this concept of doing basically townhouse units that are apartments. So it's all going to be under one management. There's no lots. It's townhouses, individually platted lots. This won't have any lots. So it'll be one parcel. It'll have a management firm, just like an apartment complex, and they'll rent them just like apartments. And the reason for this location and an NH2 is there's an adjacent 50-acre high school that is immediately to the south and east of this property. And that high school, that type of use, multifamily, is what you normally want adjacent to the high school. So I'm available to answer any questions you may have. The reason we're here, and she said we went through all the process at the county. We were not contiguous until you guys annexed Edgewater. So when that happened, we were actually asked to hold our construction plans because if you approve the annexation, that we would have to submit those through St. Cloud. And your staff in St. Cloud has been amazing. So they've been very helpful in this project, and we really do appreciate all their efforts.
Thank you.
Have any other questions?
Well, I have some comments. I mean, I hold the same opinion on this as I did on other Edgewater communities that have passed, and it's that I don't think we should be building here until we have more connectivity. We have one way in and one way out. Kissimmee Park Road, that's the only way to get in, the only way to get out. So I'm thinking that we should recommend approval, but with a condition that they cannot build anything until the road either connects through to Tahokwa or through to Nolte. Because in my opinion, it's not smart to have this many homes, whether they be single family or townhomes, this many more people in that area until we get more connectivity.
If I could, so the agenda items for this applicant are annexation and then land use zoning. So big picture items. And so keeping into that framework of review, down the road, what's going to happen is natural to think and question and wonder. But annexation is
Is
right in
simply
front of you.
annexation, right.
Land use is awfully big issue to address, again, with the factors and even zoning. So, I want to caution the commission to get too far out front and/or to condition something, conditioning zoning is, you're not going to be able to condition zoning. You're going to either make your recommendation of zoning or you're just going to have to attribute something to it. It's not going to be conditioned. So it's, you can recommend denial if you think it's an appropriate land use category and/or zoning. Or if there's a problem with the annexation, you can recommend denial of that if you have a good faith basis. But otherwise, you got to plow forward. But you can ask any questions of the applicant that you wish, and any staff feedback or public comment as well.
Any update on roadways?
Absolutely. I have updates for everything. So in this corridor, Crossberry Parkway's been open. The realignment of Clay Whaley is open to traffic. Those were both Edgewater East projects for the CDD. They are also improving Clay Whaley Road right now. So that's under construction for Phase 1. Phase 2 plans went in today for final approval. And they'll start that probably in April of this year. The design for Crossberry Parkway to the north through the urban center is underway right now. I'm actually even doing a mass grading plan for the urban center. And the Turnpike, even though their date that you'll see online is 2028 for the Turnpike improvements, which is the interchange, they bid it as a design build, and they'll be opening the interchange prior to 28 and 26. And then that will give you the overfly into Nolte Road and another connection onto there. Steve Kane asked me on Friday night if I would consider giving them an alignment for Kissimmee Park Road. I'm designing Kissimmee Park Road as a 4-lane divided right now for the east-west portion, and it stops at Crossberry Parkway, and that's what all the transportation models show. That's what's needed. Steve, when all these other developments and homes start getting built in the next 10 to 15 years, he would like another access to this area besides Friars Cove Road. So he's working with the Turnpike to extend Kissimmee Park Road over the Turnpike to Canoe Creek Road. We are also extending Creekwoods Drive for the city from Canoe Creek Road to Old Canoe Creek Road, which will make another connection between two of the major thoroughfares. So there will be additional access to this area. These units right now, I said 238. I'm not quite positive what the total number of units is. We lost some just because of how we were designing, and they created 2 extra parks. And there's some historic oak trees on the site that they wanted to save. So we had to leave that area lower, and we took the units out to be able to save that oak canopy. So that's all after this. This is the annexation, land use, and zoning. If you don't approve the annexation, I'd be sad because I really enjoy working with your staff. But with the annexation, we'll develop it in the county. So the county's already has it. The reason that we're here is that there's a JPA between St. Cloud and the city of St. Cloud, and it requires, if we're contiguous to your boundary, that we have to come into the city. And that's why we submitted the applications. So if you have any other questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you.
If we have no other questions, can I get a motion for
We want to call for public comment,
public comments?
just on the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No public comments. As of that, we'll be closing the public comments now and making a motion to accept the motions for ordinance number 2023-10, DRC case ANX 23-00001.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2023-10 based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
I second it.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Okay, passes. Now we'll be hearing ordinance number 2023-11, DRC case CPA 23-0004.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2023-11 and transmit to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for interagency review based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
Do I have a second?
Aye.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Ordinance number 2023-12, DRC case ZMA 23-00001. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2023-12, based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
I second it.
We have a first, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes.
5-0.
5-0.
Mr. Lantry, did you vote?
Yes.
You did,
I
thank
said
you.
aye, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, my hearing.
Okay, now we'll be hearing 1, 2,
Thank you.
3 again? We'll be hearing DRC case number ANX 23-0002, ordinance number 2023-13, and ordinance number 2023-14, DRC case CPA 23-00002, and ordinance number 2023-15, DRC case ZMA 23-0002.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission. Tisha Manning, Senior Planner for Community Development. The 3 cases before you are a voluntary annexation, a comprehensive plan amendment, and a zoning map amendment for Tahokwa. Again, this is over in the East Lake Toho area for the Tahokwa mixed-use development. The property that we are annexing, it's actually 2 properties, and they're combined is about 0.94 acres. And staff does recommend approval. I'm sorry, the location is south of Neptune Road, east of Breezewood, north of Crossberry Parkway, and west of Tahokwa Boulevard.
And we had annexed a property right next to this last year, correct?
Correct. So what they're doing is part of the mixed-use concept plan. They're just still going out looking for those little properties that are kind of enclaves in their development, and they have some ongoing, negotiations going. So as those properties, they're retaining the ownership of those, they're annexing them in. The background is contiguous and reasonably compact. It's adjacent to city limits and abuts it on the southern and eastern property boundaries. The future land use is mixed use. The existing county zoning is mixed use. The existing county future land use is also mixed use. The proposed future land use is mixed use. The proposed zoning is mixed use. The development is compatible with the surrounding areas and poses no adverse impact on city facilities. Again, it's just 2 small properties that they're going out and continuing to, get those properties that's in their area and bringing them into their development. You can see here clearly the Tahokwa development, those 2 properties that they're picking up. Again, still in negotiations about other little small enclaves in that area, which I'm sure, hopefully, that they'll be picking up as well. It is in alignment with the strategic plan goal of growth management. And staff does recommend approval, and likewise, we ask that the council also recommend approval of the annexation, the comprehensive plan amendment, and the zoning map amendment. And I do apologize, that is an error. It is not a PUD zoning map. It is just a zoning map amendment. And I am available if you have any questions, as well as the applicant is available.
Thank you.
Would the applicant please come up?
Good evening, Joe Thacker, 17 South Orlando Avenue, Kissimmee. We do agree with all of the recommendations of staff. I do want to point out that one of the sites is where the city wants to put the fire station. So they went out and purchased that because they thought it would be a better location than the one that had been originally located within the Tahokwa boundary. So it will be right on the corner of Breezewood and Neptune for the new fire station. And I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Does anybody have any comments, questions?
Thank you. No comments, no questions?
Public comment.
Public comments, please? No public comments. Okay, we'll close public comments. Do I get a motion for DRC case number ANX 23-002, ordinance number 2023-13? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2023-13 based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Passes. Next, ordinance number 2023-14, DRC case CPA 23-00002.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2023-14 and to transmit to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for interagency review based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And we'll be listening now for ordinance number 2023-15, DRC case ZMA 23-00002. Any motion?
And just to clarify with city staff, this was a zoning rezoning amendment, right? Not the PUD?
That's correct.
Okay, just check. All right, so I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2023-15 based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Passes 5-0.
Joe, can I, a real quick question, though. A fire rescue station there, and there's one on Canoe Creek, right? Are they going to close one down, or there isn't?
I don't think so. I think they need as many as.
It'll
they-
be, oh, okay,
It'll
in
be in
addition to.
addition. Mhm.
That's great.
Thank you.
So we got two more. Okay. Okay, we'll be listening now to ordinance number 2023-16, DRC case CPA 22-00013, and ordinance number 2023-17, DRC case ZMA 22-00013.
Good evening, members of the board. Tisha Manning, Senior Planner for Community Development. The case before you is a comprehensive plan amendment and a zoning map amendment. It is for approximately 0.2 acres located south of 17th Street, east of Buttinger Avenue, west of Longleaf Drive, and north of Shelby Ruth Place. Staff does recommend approval. Currently, the background, the proposed future land use is private institutional with professional zoning. Currently, it has a future land use of medium density residential, and the current zoning is R3 multifamily. The development is compatible with the surrounding area and poses no adverse impacts on city facilities. You can see here, the property is just a small property located here. That's Peghorn Park right next to it, and some other professional office buildings here. The strategic plan goal it aligns with is growth management, economic development, and professional workforce. Staff does recommend approval of these ordinances for comp plan amendment and zoning map amendment. Likewise, we ask that the commission also recommend approval. And I am available if you have any questions, as well as the applicant is available.
So I recall this being a residential property. It must have been sold, or there, at least my recollection of driving by this.
I do know by just my research, there is a house on the property, but I'm not sure if it was sold, but I'm pretty sure the
That's the
applicant
house
answered
with the
that
small
question.
little shack in the
Yeah,
corner.
yeah.
It's been sold. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening, Mike LaRosa, LaRosa Development, 1420 Celebration Boulevard, Celebration. To answer the question, yes, there is an older home that is on the property. The intention obviously is to move it out of the residential into a commercial type zoning. Of course, being adjacent to the hospital would make a lot of sense for it to be medical office, which is what our intended use is going to be.
And I think the property on the east side is already a commercial building that's relatively new, correct?
If I remember correctly, it's a two-story office building. There's some medical in there, maybe some other uses as well, but yes, correct.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll be opening up to the public for public comment. No public comments. Can I please get a motion for ordinance number 2023-16, DRC case CPA 22-00013?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2023-16 and transmit to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for an interagency review based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Ordinance number 2023-17, DRC case ZMA 22-00013. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-17 based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes. Ms. Stephanie, next meeting will be?
Yes, the next meeting will be March 21st at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody have a motion for closing?
So moved?
I'll second.
Second it? All in favor?
Aye.
Business closed. Okay.